Welcome to the Artist Advisory Hotline, the podcast for artists who want valuable guidance and honest answers on how to grow their careers and develop their new project from leading art world experts and artists. Here's your host and founder of the Artist Advisory, Marina Granger. Tune in as she gets you the answers you deserve.
Hello, artists. I'm your host, Marina Granger, and today I want to talk to you about how you can get successful and stay successful. And the way that I want to approach this today is to speak to you about the one thing that can be sabotaging your success. And that is a really tiny bit of our psyche that is so big sometimes, and that is the ego. Now, you might be wondering, okay, well, I've heard of this word, the ego, like someone can be egotistical, they're really into themselves. Well, the ego is the part of our psyche that responds to the outside world and reacts to it, right? And so the ego is dependent on the outside world. And if we were going to dive in deep into psychology, you could see how that is one of the most unstable parts of our psychology, because when we are dependent on the outside world, we are dependent on a part of us that we cannot control because we cannot control the outside world. And so letting go of that control and letting go of the ego is when we really step into our flow. Now, there is a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap, and it's suggested reading for my course, The Artist Academy, which I have been teaching for 5 years now. In the past few months, I have had it as an online self-paced program so that an artist can go in and do the course all on their own. And I will make this announcement here today because I feel so aligned with it. I am going to do a live version of this course in, I want to say in August, but maybe in July. I cannot wait to do this live, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go on a little tangent and tell you why I want to do this live again. So, there, I always have a mentor or two or three, and there was one mentor who kind of dropped off and said, okay, I'm not going to do live courses anymore. Everything's kind of self paced. And if you want to work with me live, it's like really hard to do that because, this and that and the other thing. And she emailed us and said, hey, I'm actually going to repeat my online signature program, which I have done already. And I'm going to do a live version. And the moment I read that in my email, the way that I lit up, I knew that, first of all, yes, I wanted to repeat the program with her, but secondly, that I wanted to be there for my students, live in person, really feeling that connection. So that's when I knew I had to respond and to my feelings by creating a live portion to the Artist Academy again. I can't wait to tell you about it, but if you're into it, go ahead and join the wait list. So the link is in the show notes. Basically, the course is going to help you navigate the art world, learn how to present your work to the right people. You will learn who the right people are and exactly what they are looking for. And so this is super special because I worked for many years in the New York City art world around the right people and sometimes being the right person myself. And so that way, I have learned exactly what these people are looking for, how the system works. So that is why I put together this course. So you could just take the guesswork out of how to navigate the art world. And so this is going to be so fun. I cannot wait. we're going to have a module drop every 2 weeks, and then every 2 weeks we're going to have a live Q&A, and at the end you will meet two people, like either a gallerist or a curator or one or the other, right? Um, in a live group setting, and you get to speak to them, introduce your work to them using my proven elevator pitch formula. And from this type of thing, if you go back a few episodes, you can hear that so many artists have gotten opportunities to work with these either curators or gallerists. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful space to create community as well. And yeah, I'm like super lit up about it. I can't wait to do it. So if you're into the live version, go ahead and join the wait list. And you'll be the first to know when enrollment opens. Also, if you are on the wait list, there's going to be like really cool stuff for you, like bonuses, a special price, and all of those things. But okay, so back to the big leap. Also, if you read this book and then you do the course, you're going to be like one tiny step ahead because you would have read the book already. So, in this book, called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, speaks about how the ego is operating between these two parallel lines. So imagine two parallel lines. The bottom line is the baseline, and the top line is called the upper limit. Now, the baseline, the bottom line, is the bare minimum that you expect to achieve for yourself, whether it comes whether it comes to paying your rent or the type of car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, the type of cadence of your sales, and all of these things, right? And the upper limit is the creme de la creme. I mean, it is the most exciting thing that you can think of achieving. For me, it would be like probably going on Oprah or something like that, right? That would be insane. I would totally probably spontaneously combust at this point, but I'm working on it so that I do not do that. So that is like the upper limit. So for some artists, it could be, having a solo show with Gagosian Gallery or something like that. And while you are listening, there may be some of you listening who are thinking, okay, I totally don't have that fear. Like I could have a show with Larry Gagosian and totally be fine and sell my work for millions of dollars. I'm totally ready. That is, you could be saying that to yourself, but if it's a really big leap for you, you might feel ready and you're not going to be sustaining that success unless you deal with the ego, right? So, okay, so back to these two parallel lines. So the ego operates between these two parallel lines, the baseline and the upper limit. And it's between these two parallel lines because it feels so comfortable between these two parallel lines. It knows what is going to happen. Everything's predictable. And that is the reason that we do not go below our baseline, that we do not drop our standards, right? And some of you, you might have very high standards and have raised your baseline. And there might be people listening who are thinking like, oh, I don't even have standards, but you do. And it, they are there. They might feel like they're not standards to you, but they're there. And they might not feel like they're standards to you because you're like, well, it's nothing fancy. But that's precisely it. It's nothing fancy, but we won't let it happen in a way that it's less fancy, right? So the ego operates between the baseline and the upper limit because it feels so comfortable in that space. And as we start to drop below the baseline, we find a way to hop over it, right? Or to stay over the baseline. Meaning, if our bank account dwindles to a certain number and we're used to a different number in there, we're going to find a way to make it happen, even subconsciously, because that is our baseline. And the upper limit, as we approach the upper limit, we tend to self-sabotage because we don't know what is on the other side, right? And when we don't know what's on the other side, we might have all of this success. That is when we could maybe sometimes feel sick or something and not show up to an opportunity or fight against deadlines or whatever it is, you might sabotage it. And I know that I'm speaking right now to some of you, and you're like, oh, I totally know what you're talking about. So let's say we're going to, leave this kind of visual for you, right? That the ego operates between these two parallel lines. And what happens is the ego, remember, it reacts to our outside environment. And when it reacts to our outside environment, it can do wonderful things. It's like the adrenaline of the psyche. You can really manifest and do amazing things with it. But when you're creating everything from the ego, it is ego driven and it does not last, right? That's how you hear these stories of somebody maybe won the lottery and it's above their upper limit and then they lose all the money, right? That is an example of it because in the ego, it's like, hey, um, I want to show off all this money that I have, but then it's their thermostat, first of all, their financial thermostat isn't set to that amount of money, but also it's above their upper limit. It feels uncomfortable, and so they go down back in between these two parallel lines, the baseline and the upper limit. So today I want to talk to you about how you can identify when you are working from the ego and nip it in the bud. Because when you are focused on getting success, not from the ego, but rather from your heart's desire, that is when things start to happen for you sustainably. That is when things can be good for you for a long time. When you do things, when you create success from the ego, that's when it does not last. So, anything that is created from the ego is created from lack, scarcity. There's this idea that there's not enough to go around. And when you're comparing yourself to someone else, right? And one example of that, I actually thought of several examples I want to share with you. The first one is this idea like maybe your parents or someone when you were a kid was like, oh, being an artist is like such a cute little hobby. Like, good luck making a career out of that. So when they say that to you, your ego might think to you, to yourself, to itself, and say like, "Hey, yeah, that's right. Like it is a cute little hobby to them, but not to me because I am such a great artist. I'm going to go and totally show them what they're totally wrong about. I am going to be such a professional artist. I'm going to make millions of dollars worth of sales and I'm going to have all of this success. But here's the thing, that success is coming again to spite someone else. And so it's coming from the ego, it's not coming from your heart's desire. Another one is when you compare yourself to other artists, you might think, oh, I can't believe this, artist, this person calls themselves an artist, doesn't even have the same credentials as me or whatever, and has achieved all of this stuff, right? That's when you feel that way and you're like, well, I can do better than them, right? And whatever success you manifest from that is manifesting from the ego, right? So they have this and not that. And or they have this and I don't have that. So I'm going to go get it. Right? So when you have this idea that there's not enough to go around of something, where you're like, okay, there's this huge competition. And here's the thing, like the art world is sort of designed to make you work from the ego. And that's why I think this is so special and so important to take into account. So, for example, there could be a competition and there's only like two, maybe three winners, right? Like the first place, runner up, and third place, right? Or whatever. So you are thinking, hey, there's not enough to go around. So when you win that competition or when you want to win, you're like, I need to be the best. And there's not enough to go around. Oh, how many of you can resonate with that? Whenever they create scarcity for artists in the art world of like, hey, there's not enough galleries, there's not enough collectors, we have to fight over collectors, over representation, over getting our work in front of these curators. Whenever you are fed this nonsense, that's when your ego gets turned on. And then you start to make these decisions that are based from scarcity, lack, comparison, fear, right? And you are making decisions that are not about what you want. They're really about what others want or have. You are responding to something that is outside of yourself. You are responding to other people's haves and have nots, right? And so, again, when you are making decisions to spite someone or to make somebody else proud, right? This is a really deep one because, of course, we all want to make, our maybe our parents proud, our caretakers proud, our teachers, whoever. We want to make them proud. And yes, you can. And that can be a truly your heart's desire. But a lot of the time, it's because you're doing something that they want you to do, that they expect of you. And when you're doing that, guess what? Your heart's not in it, your ego is in it, right? So when you're doing something and you're like, okay, I am worthy once I achieve that. And how many artists do I work with that are like, oh, I am not worthy yet to even approach this gallerist or to have a gallery show because I haven't achieved this, right? And when this is coming from your heart's desire, that's one thing. But when this is coming from, they said I should have an MFA, or they said I need to have an entire exhibition of paintings ready to go, then that is your ego, right? That is being driven from your ego. Or when you think that once you achieve this thing, you will be whole, right? So I remember, and so this is something super personal, and it's not an art world thing, but when I was like 14, I quit ballet. I used to dance ballet like on point and for years and years and years, and it was not very healthy, but it was super fun, but totally driven from the ego, by the way. But anyway, I quit ballet and I had rapid weight gain. And I would say, okay, well, I'm not going to allow myself to enjoy life unless I lose weight. I'm not going to allow myself to wear anything. I mean, like anything that's nice because I haven't lost weight. And it took me forever to lose weight. And only when I stopped caring did I lose weight. And mind you, when I say I had weight gain, I was totally like a normal size. I just didn't think I was because I had this idea that I had to be like super thin. Anyway, and so that was an example of once I achieve this thing, then I am worthy of enjoying my life, right? So here's the thing, right? What are we taking away from this other than what not to do? What are we going to do? So when you're thinking about what you want, what success means to you, because success is different for everyone, right? And that is super key to understand. It's different for everyone. What success means to your parents, to your friends from art school, like if you went to art school, or to your friends, is different than what success means to you. So, truly thinking about, what does success mean to me? What do I want? What is truly in my heart's desire? So I invite you to take a look at that, write it down. What is in your heart's desire? And then let's go through the checklist real quick. Is this, when once you write it down, go through this checklist. Does this come from, do I want to spite anyone? Right? Am I doing this to make somebody else proud? Am I doing this to feel worthy or complete? Am I doing this from comparison? Am I doing this because I think that there's not enough to go around? Right? And so once you go through your list of what you want, your heart's desire, and if you go through this and it doesn't have any of that, that's truly your heart's desire, and you are going to achieve it and you are going to sustain it. But when you are ticking off, like, hey, actually, this is to spite someone, this is actually, I'm going to feel worthy when I achieve this. This is huge, like feeling worthy when I achieve this. I feel worthy when somebody says my art is good. I'm going to feel worthy when Jerry Saltz sees my work and says it's worthy. That is going to be, you're going to be making work that's driven by the ego. And it's not going to get you where you're meant to go. So I will leave you with that. And I do hope that this episode helped you. Having this sort of mindset helped me so, so much around this, identifying the ego, the ego BS, and nipping it in the bud. And so I want to invite you to read or listen to The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. Support your community by sharing this podcast, leaving a review, and follow The Artist Advisory on Instagram at @the_artist_advisory. And visit us online at www.theartistadvisory.com.